No, I'm teaching Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
I was going to ask you to tell your partner.
Okay, you are live, Rabbi.
Okay, sideways. I'm live already. Yeah. Everyone who has Facebook, please
Comments from the back.
please go pull out your phones and just go to. Anyone here have Facebook on their phone? Okay. But anyway, anyone watching this, if you don't mind sharing it, you can just share it. And when you, from now on, I'm broadcasting on Rabbi Yom Tov without the word Glaser, just Rabbi Yom Tov. Because I have another, my friend's page is Rabbi Yom Tov Glaser. So I'm kind of bored of all my topics. That's what I'm asking you guys. I mean, think about it. I make up a new class every single day. So, like, my topics are like, I know people are interested in them. That's why you come. Like, I'm personally bored. So I'd rather have your topics and then create more classes off your topics. So whatever you want, think about, like, you're going to be back wherever you live, maybe soon, sometime, and you'd like to have something really solid in your way of looking at the world, in your worldview. So what do you want to have really solid in your world when you're out there? What are some of the challenges you face in your daily life that you'd like to be more solid on when you get out and wherever you spend your life? Tissue? No tissue. She's gonna win the tissue race. No batteries, no tissue. Anyone who's on live can also give me a topic, because everyone else here is just sitting silent.
I was going to suggest that yesterday, actually. Someone wrote out a topic online.
Is Tuvia there?
No.
Who's there?
I don't know, 3 other guys will come.
They're gonna come?
Officially at 4.
Yeah, like what you said, ask someone online.
I did.
Oh.
Topics. If you got a topic, it's your chance.
I don't think anybody's watching.
Oh, is no one on yet?
Yeah.
After yesterday's time.
Yeah.
I'm new here, so, but like maybe, now, like, how does, like, politics and, like, all this craziness, like, how does a Jewish person, choose their leaders, Rabbi, yeah, but, like, how does he, like, what do you look for in a leader? I don't know, politics, like, how do you look at this, like, what's going on
Okay.
in general?
I like that topic. You know what's got a good topic? Yeah. Yeah. Topic?
Yeah, do you have Rosh Chodesh coming up?
When is Rosh Chodesh?
Sunday, I think. Sunday night. I don't know. I know I have Rosh Chodesh party Sunday night. That's all I know.
So it's Sunday night?
Sunday, Monday.
Yeah.
The power of Tehillim.
You're asking about Tshuva about the power of Tehillim. We can't even read Tehillim. Tehillim is for from birth people only. Any of you children of Bali Tshuva? You ever seen your parents try to read Tehillim? The women, after like 20, 30 years, they actually get okay. They get okay with it. The men forget it. Moshe, you had a topic you want me to hear? Okay. So I'm willing to do that. I mean, it's pretty harif what I'll be saying. I wasn't planning on saying anything harif today, but if no one has another topic, so we'll go with that. So the Essentials course that you're in right now is the purpose of it is to give you a worldview that's a Jewish worldview. And it's also to share the foundations of Jewish life. As the people who keep Judaism, meaning the people who actually keep the commandments, they're called Orthodox, which is like the lamest name in the world. Do you know where the name Orthodox came from? Came from the conservative and the reform. There was never such a thing as Orthodox. It's really an American invention, or maybe a European invention from Germany or something. Orthodox just means the lamos who do everything. Now, there was a time where everybody did everything, but what happened was people said, to hell with that, and they stopped doing everything. And then we automatically got labeled Orthodox, which another way of saying you're totally backwards and lame and not progressive. So never use the word Orthodox. Don't give them the pleasure. Don't give the non-Orthodox the pleasure of using the word Orthodox. We don't use that word. And since we're on it, we don't use the word religious either. We're not a religion at all. I mean, we've given birth to religions. We gave birth to Christianity, which gave birth to a million different things, and we gave birth to Islam. But we are not a religion. Okay? What is the difference between a cult and a religion? The answer is nothing other than the amount of people who follow it. If you have 20 people or 10 people following something, that's a cult. Meaning if you have 10 people following some cockamamie narrative, which is completely preposterous, so then you have a cult. Just add people, you have a religion. Judaism did not start with 10 people, it started with 3 million people standing at the base of a mountain experiencing a THX surround sound. Omnimax 3D experience at Sinai. You don't have to believe anybody. There's no one to believe. No one came out of a cave saying, I heard the word of the Lord. It's nothing like that in Judaism. Plus, our history just moves from there. I mean, watch our history. Only 400 years later, you have, if you can see out the window, Exhibit A, the Temple Mount. King David built this place 400 years later. That's not a big span of time. And if you think King David made up Judaism, he did not make up Judaism. Okay? He was the son of Yishai, and believe me, Yishai did not make up Judaism either. So we're talking about just a history of a people who got totally blown away by God. That's all. And when you get that blown away, so you wind up like being connected to it, devout to it. Just like if you're ever blown away by a man, you'll probably devote your life to him, won't you? Anytime you're blown away, you generally devote your life to it. And of course, the test of your character is how faithful you'll be to that which blew you away. So I was blown away by Torah. I've been faithful to it. I was blown away by my wife. I've been faithful to her. Things that blow you away, you're supposed to, that's now part of your repertoire. You've now downloaded that as part of the way you look at the world. You don't veer from what blew you away. Whatever blows you away is what you stay with. You can always add more things that blow you away. And I'm always adding things that blow me away. I can only do the work I do if things that blow me away become part of me. I integrate whatever blows me away. And I don't get blown away easily. And it's not because I'm not open to being blown away. I'm very open to being blown away. It's just that once you've been blown away by Torah, it's going to take a lot to impress you. But I've been impressed by a couple of things that were pretty amazing that I've integrated. And I think they're in Torah, but not really being lived by the average Torah practitioner today. So never use the word religion if you can avoid that. A religious Jew, is he a religious Jew? You know who religious Jews are? Reformed Jews who light Hanukkah candles. That's a religious Jew. Why? Because religion means you have no idea what you're doing, but you do it because that's what you do. So it could be you are religious Jews, but that's not why you came to Aish. You came to Aish to find out why we do what we do. Now, if you really do Judaism, you have no idea what you're doing, but it's just what you do because your mom did it, and your dad did it, and your grandma did it, and your grandfather did it. You're a religious Jew. But the Rambam says you're not going to get a lot of reward for that, because he says you have to know. You got to know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing, it's not going to have a lot of reward, because it's robotic, it's brainwashed. Now again, this is with all respect to Masar, total respect to Masar, with all respect to our family's traditions, but you have to get clarity. You have to live with clarity. And this program called Essentials is what we call the missing 10%. We call it the missing piece. Because, see, Orthodox Jews have 90% of Judaism. They're only missing 10%. Which 10%?
First.
The first 10%. They're missing the first 10%. The 10%, the other 90 is built on. But because growing up in schools, it's forbidden to ask questions on the first 10%, which are called the foundations of our people. You're not allowed to ask the foundation questions, like, is there God, is there not a God? Is Torah divine, is it not divine? Is the transmission throughout thousands of years, is it broken up telephone? Or is it actually a real high fidelity transmission? And Moses would recognize your Shabbos table today. He'd recognize my tefillin. Like, would he recognize that stuff, or would he be like, what happened? What happened? Like, what went wrong? Yeah.
What's your definition of knowing? What do you really know?
To know?
Yeah.
So that's an excellent question. Do we have any pens today?
Seems like it would be beyond logic, right?
Well, then you'll see. Knowing works like this. Here you know nothing. And here you know something. And here you have full knowledge. There's two types of knowledge. One's called absolute. Absolute knowledge, and that's there. And then you have what's called deductive. You have deductive knowledge, which you develop and 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 develop.
You can get to the level of absolute?
It depends what it is. You get to absolute when you make an investment. Do you have absolute knowledge? No, but if you actually win, you have absolute knowledge? For sure. I mean, if you actually made the money you plan to make, you got it. Now, most people aren't going to know that, you know, and if you do, I think there are a couple government officials that would like to speak to you. How did you know that?
But with God, how could you ever get to absolute? That would you lose the
Prophecy.
idea of Bechira.
Prophecy.
Prophecy?
Yeah, prophets didn't have a lot of behavior. And they didn't seem to care. They were just like, they were like moths in light bulbs. You ever met a moth in a light bulb complaining? They seem pretty happy. They don't last too long, but they don't seem to care about the issue. You know? So, anyway, prophets have absolute knowledge. But anywhere short of that's still pretty cool. You know, Rashi wasn't a prophet, but I have a feeling he had a lot of clarity. A lot of clarity. Yes, two questions. I can't figure out who went first. Go ahead.
So if we're not a religion, what would you say? What would you call us?
Oh, I already said. We're the people who experienced a national rendezvous with the maker of heaven and earth. That's who we are. I wouldn't even give it a title. And then after that, we like moved our way up to Israel, and King David built Jerusalem and stuff. He was king for a while. And there were other kings. Open the book. Don't even give it a title. Why give it a title? If you give it a title, then someone else is going to mess that up. Like, we don't need titles. They're all conceptual anyway. All those titles. Yes?
So if, let's say, growing up, the Rambam says, you quoted the Rambam, he says you can't live a faith, you have to discover for yourself, so to speak. Every person has to read. So what's
You have to do the Avram Avinu.
So what's the point of parents raising their children to go into Torah class? Shouldn't they just like throw them out, like figure out life? Wouldn't they be much more real that way?
Yeah. So the reason is because when parents have clarity, I'm not talking about your parents necessarily, but when parents actually have clarity, so then you would teach your kids that clarity. But what you do with the kids, and this is like advanced parenting, few parents ever do this, but I do, is you create the questions in the parenting. You create the questions. And if you're smart, you'll preempt the questions. So, for example, have intellectual Shabbos guests. We're going to ask all the hardest questions at the Shabbos table. Just watch kids from the age of like 10 till 18. Watch what happens when a secular intellectual, starts asking questions at the Shabbos table. The kids are just like, the kid's like, yeah, how do you know there's a God? Because your kids are brainwashed by your upbringing. You've been raising them with all the God awareness, but as their minds develop, they have questions. Like,
So what's the point of like raising them to do mitzvahs before they understand.
Yeah, because there's something called good and there's something called evil, and you want to train them young on that. You just want to train them young. Why would you let someone you love do evil? You'd never do that. The reason why I like your question is you're right. There's something right about what you're asking. Meaning you're right. Let your kids choose. I tell you, every kid I have a new daughter coming bat mitzvah, we're going to have our big talk. You know how like when they convert children and they have to convert by the time they're 12, you know, like that, you have to have a big talk with them to see if they're going to actually take it on. At girls at 12, boys at 13. So I have that talk with my kids right before the bat mitzvah. With everything, like everything's up for grabs. Like I know that you know, to my boys, I know Tati goes in a shtreimel, and he goes in a hat on weekdays, and I know that's the case. That's the case for me. That's not your case. You decide your case. The kid looks at me. He's 12 years old. He's like, but you know, what does he want me to do? The kid's waiting for a hat forever. Half his class already's in hats, you know, and so obviously he wants a hat badly. But I'm letting them know why, because don't come back to me later. Don't come to me later. I'm putting it out there. And you know, whatever you choose, I'll honor you. I'm your father. I will support you to the end of the world with whatever you choose. You know, if it's absolutely us, I'm not paying for it. But I'll never stop loving him. I'll never stop accepting him as a human being. That will never go away. But I make it real clear to my kids that you make your choices. Now, that's been really great so far, except I have to. Yeah, well, they probably did the multiple call thing, the Israeli aggressive move. Yo, how's it going? Look at these holy brothers. I'm looking for a table for two here. Are there 2 seats there? Right on. Someone just catch me up. I totally lost it. The Achim Nehemiah liquor store.
Speaking for kids on 13,
Huh?
which way they want to go.
Make their own choices.
Something coming up. Something that just came up. Something coming up.
Oh, I have had a child get really existentially confused because I really leave it up to them, and so it's happened a couple of times where this child is like, "What's my hashkafa?" And you know, I think it's better to be confused than to be clear about something you've never done the work to get clear about. So let her be confused for a while, and hopefully it won't be too upsetting. But it's a little upsetting. But whenever she does kind of figure herself out, so she'll at least have chosen it. I remember once this great Rebbe, a very reclusive Rebbe, not a lot of students, and a real old school Rebbe like in the previous generation. So he used to sit actually with his back to the room. Meaning when you went to his classes, you stared at his back, unless you were like one of the main students, then you got to sit at his, meaning he sat at a table, and there was a book, across from him was a bookshelf, and I sat against the bookshelf looking at him directly across from him. I was his main student. I still one of his main students. But everyone who would come to the class had to sit behind him. It took me 4 years to convince him to sit at the front of the table so everyone could see him, which is where he sits now for the last 20 years or something. But it took me a long time to get him to do that. He doesn't change things quickly, this particular Rebbe. Anyway, there was a guy invited to the class, and he sat in the class for like 5 hours. He teaches Thursday nights tonight. He teaches Thursday nights from 9:30 at night till about 4:30 in the morning, and he's anyway. The guy sat in his class and blew him away, and then he flew off to New York for 3 weeks to visit his grandmother who was dying, and he wanted to get her to like do vidui and teach her about Torah and to say Shema. He was a Baal Tshuva, Hasidic Baal Tshuva, and he called me 3 weeks later with his grandma, and he says, "Hi, can I have the number of that Rebbe, of Rav Shalom Friedman? I want to call him and ask him if I should stay or I should go." I said, he's not going to tell you. He doesn't make your decision for you. He's like a Rebbe from the old days. He's not the kind of Rebbe who tells you what to do. So but I gave him the number. He called the Rebbe. He says, Rebbe, hi, I was in your class. He never saw him. I was in your class, and I wanted to know if you think I should stay with my grandma or I should come back to Yerushalayim. And the Rebbe says, well, you'll have to make a decision. And then he said, but, you know, he told him this side, he told him that side. The Rebbe helped him out with both sides because there was a little lack of clarity on each side, so he helped him get clarity on each side. And then he says, okay, so what should I do? And he says, well, you'll decide, won't you? Anyway, he asked him a third time. He said, the reason I'm calling the Rebbe is that maybe the Rebbe would decide. And in the end, the Rebbe didn't decide. It's funny, this guy became a Bresler in the end where there's no Rebbe to ask. So, long story short is he stayed. He came back 6 weeks later. And I didn't see him when he came back, but he came straight to the Rebbe's house from the airport because it was Thursday night. And I see him walk through the door, so I was quite excited to see him. He was a good friend, old student, became a good friend. And I saw him walk in the door. The Rebbe is on a swivel chair, swivels his chair around, points at the door and says, what's it like to make your own decisions? He'd never seen him in his life. The Rebbe had never seen this guy. I was with him. He's only been the Rebbe twice. Once sitting behind the Rebbe, and twice was when he walked in the door after 6 weeks. What's it like to make your own decisions? That's what he wanted to know. So that's why it's really important that we enable people free will. We enable people choice. The only one you want to be able to blame in the end is yourself. It means you'll celebrate your successes and you'll deal with your failures, but you're not going to be pointing fingers around like Adam and Eve. Yeah, you're going to point yourself. You make your choices. Now, it's always good to have a Rebbe, because the Rebbe will help you clarify your choice. Helps you clarify. If he's a real Rebbe, then today they'll make decisions for you, most of them. But the real Rebbes will just help you get clarity, help you clarify things. Spot right. Yeah.
Which Rebbe are you?
What?
Which Rebbe are you?
Oh, extreme independence. Yeah, I help people clarify and they make decisions. Now, anyway, but in answer of your question is that deductive knowledge, it's just as much knowledge. You guys all live by deductive knowledge. I mean, I think everyone here flew here on an airplane. None of you walked here through Africa or something? Did you have absolute knowledge your plane would arrive? No. You risked your life on deductive knowledge. You always do. Any of you DNA swabbed your mom just in the middle of a fight? Just say, you're not my mom. You popped a little swab into her tongue. We'll see who you are. Who is this lady? Yeah, but you still call her mom. You'd probably die for her if you had to. You'd certainly bail her out before you'd bail someone else out if they were in jail. You call her mom. Why do you call her mom? You have absolute knowledge? It's deductive knowledge. That's how we live. You're going to get married one day. Absolute knowledge, deductive knowledge. For the men, very deductive. And for the women, a bit deductive. Because women have something called intuition. Men have intuition too, but not when it comes to marriage. It's just too much responsibility. Responsibility kills intuition. So we don't have as much intuition, so we have to go a lot off the woman's intuition. But women, you got to watch out for yourselves. If you ever have no intuition about a guy, I mean, he looks good on paper, so you're dating him, but your intuition's not buzzing away. Yet he thinks that I'm giving dating advice. You better come in quick. Shalom, ladies. Hey, we have 2 seats right up here in front row. Perfect. Just what we wanted. Welcome. So if you're ever dating a guy, and the only reason you date him is because it looked good on paper, but your intuition's not buzzing away at all. But his is like, he's like crazy over you. He's sweeping you off your feet. He's spoiling you with everything. And yeah, run for your life. Just run for your life. Anytime your intuition's not buzzing, you're out of there, number one. But if he's pushing, that means he's some kind of control freak and you're some kind of trophy girl for his issues. You're some Band-Aid. You're some Band-Aid, a butterfly Band-Aid that he's going to put over a 50-stitch wound. And just get out quick. Get out quick if you have such a situation. Clear? Buzzing intuition, and he should be scared out of his mind. If he's scared out of his mind, you got your guy. And why is he so scared? Because there's a deeper intuition called fear. It comes from the back brain. It's called the hypothalamus. And when a man is dating a girl and he's not scared, that means deep down on his like deepest level of fear, she's not the one. So he's all chill. The second he starts freaking, that means he's got the right one. So the man should have fear. That would be, instead of calling it the intuition, we'd call it the instinct. When his fear instinct kicks in, which is the reptilian part of his brain that's scared, she wants to be close to the class, but she's dealing with a phone call right in the window. So his instinct of fear should be totally kicking in. And by the way, you can't look for that. You're not gonna. He's not gonna let you see his fear. But this is only for the men. If your instinct of fear is kicked in big time, you found your girl. And for the girl, if her buzzing intuition, like, oh my gosh, this is the guy I'm gonna be spending the rest of my life with. I'm gonna be raising his kids. That's how you know. And the last thing I was gonna share with you, is just to let the men know. Yeah, David, you getting this? You're taking notes? So what the men know is that, yeah, that's hardly notes, bro. So, and another thing for the men, just to warn you, that from the day of your engagement, it'll be fear, but from the day of your engagement, you're going to lay down your bed after all the l'chaims and everything. You're going to look up at your ceiling, and you're going to be like, what the hell did I just do? you just ruined your life. And then that voice grows louder and louder and louder until the wedding, which means do a short engagement. And then it gets quieter and quieter and quieter over the next 50 years. And women, you better hope that kid looks like him. Okay? So it gets quieter. It takes years and years for it to quiet down, but it gets quieter and quieter. Have kids that look like him. Dress them like him if they don't. Or something. Do anything to remind him that you are the mother of his children, and maybe he ought to get used to this whole wife situation. So, anyway, and then there was one more thing I was going to tell you. Oh my gosh, ladies, when you get engaged, stay away from him. Just stay away from him. If you could possibly be on a different continent till the day of the chuppah, that'd be much better. That'd be much better. And I'm going to scare you why. Normally people say, I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to scare you why. You can smile once in a while. She's like, I'm going to scare you why. The reason why is all the things that he thought were so cute about you, which is like every little thing. Like every little thing you do is magic. Yeah? Every little thing she does is magic. Everything she do just turn me on. Yeah? So when you first meet him and before you get engaged, every little thing you do is magic. But that's before his voice started on the engagement night. Once that voice hits on the engagement night when he hit his pillow, and it gets louder and louder, every little thing you do, first of all, it gets on his nerves, but it also becomes another proof and 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 another proof that you're going to make him absolutely crazy. And all he does is get more doubts and more doubts and more doubts and more doubts and more doubts. And I've had to literally sit with a man for hours to get him not to break it off. And it was only because she spent so much time, because I need him. I need you. Yeah? So her needing him almost made her miss her soulmate for, the next 50 years of her life. So you may need him, but wait till you're married to need him. because it's not locked in yet. Till the chuppah, you don't have your insurance policy. An engagement ring is a stone, but it's not an insurance policy. The wedding band's the insurance policy. So that's your insurance policy. He's not going to dump you once you tell him what it really takes to keep you afloat. Which you'd never tell him while dating. And don't tell him while you're dating. Unless you have something like really serious, like, on the fourth date, you're obligated to tell the person if you have something serious. Meaning if the person's like bipolar or something. You don't have to tell them on date 1, 2, or 3, but you must tell things like that on date 4. That's the rules. If you don't do it, you'll pay for it later. Pay for it later. And anyway, you want to marry someone who wouldn't love you with bipolar? You want to marry someone who wouldn't love you, that you have like some gigantic birthmark on your back or something? And you want to marry someone who wouldn't marry you for that? How would it feel to have someone who didn't love you, or would only love you if you didn't have something? You're ruining your life. So whatever if you do have a big issue, the halacha is you have to divulge it on the fourth day, but don't hold back from that, because it fulfills so many purposes to divulge it on the fourth day. And like we talked about, how did we get on this in the first place? It's choices, so that you own your choice, he owns his choice. I chose this, I went in on this. The biggest complaint I get in marriages is, years down the line, is that she didn't tell me. He didn't tell me. I hear it once a month at least. He didn't tell me, she didn't tell me. And it has become a wedge in their relationship for the last 15 years, because they feel that there was not transparency. And they feel like they were duped, and now they're stuck. And even though none of that would have happened if they had just said it on the fourth day. That's what's going on. Now this gets more sticky with Hasidic dating, where they only really have one 45-minute meeting, and it's going to be really hard to find out about, birthmarks and stuff. Do you have any birthmarks? Just want to know about your birthmarks, please. So, in Hasidic dating, it's a much more of a what's the word for it? In Vegas, you call it a crapshoot, but I don't know what you'd call it. What?
Gamble?
Yeah, more of a gamble. Thank you. It's also Vegas. All those adjectives come from Vegas. So, hey, someone from Vegas. Want to learn?
Yeah, I do.
This is your spot right here.
Oh, thank you.
You got a window view. You get to view of the Kotel. So, you got a view of the Kotel.
I'm blessed.
You are so blessed, bro.
I know.
So, I forgot what I was talking about. Oh,
Ah, shoot.
yeah. In the Hasidic world, it's a bigger crapshoot, because there's not much you can ask in 45 minutes, and the families, the custom in the Hasidic world is to hide everything, and so it's a lot scarier. A lot more research has to be done. And but the only thing I can tell you, what? They said 3? Okay. The only piece of advice I can give you about it is to be a gem shopper. If you're Hasidic, is to be a gem shopper. Is look for the gem and forget about the family. Just forget what's on paper and find the gem for your child. You raise this child, like this child is your everything. You put so much into this child. Forget about your name, forget about their name, forget about everyone. Just go for the gem. Become a gem connoisseur. So I actually learned this from a very wealthy man in Borough Park. He was a close friend of mine. And I said to him, so, what kind of shidduchim did you make for your kids? I know all his kids and all the in-laws, but I don't know what kind of families they're from. Rich people like to marry off to rich people. So I said, so did you marry a bunch of rich people? Meaning, did you marry your daughters off to rich people, your sons rich people? He said, no, I'm supporting several of them. And I said, what happened? And he said, my wife and I are gem connoisseurs. We only looked at the kid. We didn't look at anything else. And they found their gems, and all those kids are very, very happy people. And so don't mess your kids up by looking only at names and externalities and how good you look from this marriage or that marriage or whatever. And And I know, and I have a friend. I mean, I shouldn't be laughing. It was a nightmare situation, but he, of all of his boys, he has 11 sons and 2 girls. And the wedding he did the least investigation with was, I mean, you can hear the disaster coming. The wedding that he did the least investigation with was with his coolest kid. Like, this kid is just such a cool guy. Amazing guy. And because he was such an amazing guy, so he got this like very miyuchasdik, like the most miyuchasdik of all his sons. A lot of them are married to pretty chashuv families, but this was the most chashuv. And the next day after the wedding, he realized he was married to a 3-year-old. And someone with the mentality of a 3-year-old. Meaning the emotional development of a 3-year-old. Yeah, she had the mentality, but the emotional development of a 3-year-old. And, I mean, all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose. And then there was another situation of another friend of mine who had a kid who was mentally unstable. And he didn't tell the other family. And I just can't tell you what a disaster it was afterwards. And they don't get divorced really, Yerushalmis. So they stayed married, and Baruch Hashem, this guy stabled out, and everything's fine now. But the distrust, the anger, and the hell they went through. And she would have married him anyway. They could have, you know, all they had to do was just let them know. You know? And they would have probably gone for it. They were clearly soulmates. You know? Yes, Ezra.
What's the concrete definition of something that needs to be raised as a big issue on the 4th date?
On the 4th day?
Yeah.
Oh, it would be like a disease or something. Something that's going to be a major, something that could affect children.
Okay.
It would be like, you know, an emotional diagnosis. I mean, if someone had been evaluated with such and such an emotional disease or syndrome, things like that. Yeah, just anything like that. A disease, a physical disease.
And birthmarks.
Birthmarks, though. My thumb was slammed in a door when I was 9. First night of Hanukkah. I kind of have like much, you know, you see my thumb here? Just kidding. I held it lower, but it did get slammed in the door. So I I told her, I said, by the way, I have this like horrific thumb. You realize, like, you still gonna marry me? And also, I have a dog dish here. You know, some people have chest indent on the sternum. My sternum indents. So I was like, and I also have a dog dish. And she was like, it's okay. But I wanted to be like, this is what's going on over here. And it's the funniest thing. None of my kids were born with a dog dish. My dad has a dog dish, and I have the dog dish. None of my brothers do, and none of my kids do it. And I had a granddaughter with a dog dish. It's crazy. So hers is tiny. It's like, mine's extreme. Yeah. I remember once I was sunbathing as a teen in Palm Springs, and I was bathing. I was probably asleep, passed out, God knows what. And my dog just full of water, because after the water you're dripping, and the dog just filled with water. And anyway, but the water got really hot. And one of my buddies put out a cigarette in the dog dish, and it boiled. It boiled. I mean, it was almost at boiling temperature. It was like 108 degrees out. And he like boiled it over with his cigarette. And I was like, wow! He didn't realize how hot it was. Okay, shalom everybody. Yeah, can you bring this up? Oh my gosh, guys. We feed a family every Shabbos. This class. Whoever shows up to Thursday, and I wish it was older people, because sometimes we have like